Each of our lives are in one of the four upcoming places that I'm about to mention to you. Either your life is in park in procrastination and making poor decisions, going nowhere. If you're not in park, then you're in neutral, too nervous and too indecisive to make a commitment to go anywhere or to do anything. If you're not in park, if you're not in neutral, then you're in reverse, going backwards with bitterness and blame for all of your regrets in life. But tell your neighbor, I can't go forward in reverse, I can't go forward in neutral, and I definitely can't go forward in parked. The only way you can go forward, you have to get your life into drive. Well, what does it mean to get my life into drive? When your life is in drive, you're developing the right initiatives and the right values of effectiveness. You see, when you are a leader, you are somebody that has the initiative. I don't have to come tell you what to do. You have the own wherewithal. You see something, you do something about it. Nobody has to pick and pry at you like we have to do our kids. Clean your room, wash the clothes. When you have initiative, you take the responsibility, because if you don't do it, nobody else will. Somebody say, I got to get in drive.
Come on, everybody, put your hands together. It's got to get better. All over the world, listen to these words. People come. People come. People go. People go. Your life has been out of control. You're confused. But don't worry. Your soul, it will get better. It's gotta get better. It will get better. It's gonna be better. It will get better. 'Cause God is in control, y'all.
Get into the Word of God. We're going to be in a great book of Joshua, chapter 1, verses 1 through 9. And we just thank you for your presence today. Thank you for your prayers. And just thank you for supporting each of us on this day that the Lord has made. We thank God for the sunshine at last. Amen. In Joshua 1, verses 1 through 9, it reads to us, Now it came to pass after the death of Moses, the servant of Jehovah, that Jehovah spake unto Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying, Moses, my servant is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, thou and all this people, unto the land which I do give to them, even to the children of Israel. Every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, to you have I given it, as I spoke unto Moses from the wilderness and this Lebanon, even unto the great river, the river Euphrates, all the lands of the Hittites, and unto the great sea toward the going down of the sun shall be your border. There shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of thy life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. Be strong and of good courage, for thou shalt cause this people to inherit the land which I swear unto their fathers to give to them. Only be strong and very courageous, to observe, to do all according to the law which Moses my servant commanded thee. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that thou mayest have good success whithersoever thou goest. This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate thereon it day and night, and thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. Have not I commanded thee? Be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for Jehovah thy God is with thee whithersoever thou goest. And all of God's people said, Amen. My subject this morning is real simple. Tell yourself, it's time to move forward. A sign of great leadership is all about motivating and inspiring others with a desire and the will to move forward in life. Here in the text, there's a leadership transition and a leadership opportunity. The great leader, the one that the Lord used to defeat Pharaoh at the Red Sea, the one that God had called to rescue and lead the children of Israel out of Egypt after they had been in bondage for over 400 years. This great leader named Moses, the one that God had given the 10 commandments, the one who spoke to the rock and water had came out. This Moses, the one that God used to bring manna from heaven to feed the children of Israel. This Moses, the one that experienced the incredible. He looked at a bush that was burning, but it did not burn up. This Moses standing on sand, on ground, land that was holy land. This great Moses has now made his transition to be with the Lord. What do we learn from Moses? We learn from Moses is that one man or one woman never stops God's agenda from moving forward. God is always preparing because God is always focused on moving his agenda forward with or without us. Joshua is not a new leader on the scene. Joshua has been through the leadership school of faith in action. Faith that has been tested and faith that has endured. Joshua is introduced over 27 times throughout the book of Exodus and Numbers of an individual that's willing to fight for his future. Joshua has to overcome, though, the fear to move forward. As his mentor, his hero, has now passed off the scene, and now the mantle is in his hands. What Joshua has to understand, the same thing you and I have to understand when we find ourselves in challenging situations where Big Mama has passed off the scene. Big Papa is no longer around. The people that we could go to and depend upon to give us the words of the wisdom, and now we can't call them no more. Joshua, he's in this space, this place. God, what you're calling me to now it's your turn, Joshua. But what we have to understand is that God does not work from where you are. God works from where he is. See, God is already where he's calling you to, Joshua. See, when you get to your destination, God has already moved forward, calling you to your next destination. God is always moving forward because he has a forward agenda of continuously growing us to come closer and closer and closer to being where he is, and further away from where we don't need to be. Our good friend, our brother, our leader, the one we all look to, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., he once gave this quote. He said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep it moving. You see, this morning, ladies and gentlemen, as it applies to our ability to move forward, each of our lives are in one of the four upcoming places that I'm about to mention to you. Either your life is in parked in procrastination and making poor decisions, going nowhere. If you're not in park, then you're in neutral, too nervous and too indecisive to make a commitment to go anywhere or to do anything. If you're not in parked, if you're not in neutral, then you're in reverse, going backwards with bitterness and blame for all of your regrets in life. But tell your neighbor, I can't go forward in reverse. I can't go forward in neutral, and I definitely can't go forward in parked. The only way you can go forward, you have to get your life into drive. Well, what does it mean to get my life into drive? When your life is in drive, you're developing the right initiatives and the right values of effectiveness. You see, when you are a leader, you are somebody that has the initiative. I don't have to come tell you what to do. You have the own wherewithal. You see something, you do something about it. Nobody has to pick and pry at you like we have to do our kids. Clean your room, wash the clothes. When you have initiative, you take the responsibility, because if you don't do it, nobody else will. Somebody say, I got to get in drive. You see, the government is not going to drive your house. Political leaders is not going to drive the outcomes of what takes place at your address. The only person that's going to drive change in your house is you, and you. God's initiative and God's values. To move forward, ladies and gentlemen, we have to shift our gears. We got to shift from going in reverse. Shift from looking in the rearview mirror of our lives. Some of us, we just stuck looking back. But remember, that rearview mirror is much smaller and it's limited. And there's less of God in the back of you. But there's more of God in the front of you in your windshield. Shift from always being in reverse. Shift from being in neutral. Shift to now your life is moving forward because now God is in control, driving you to drive out those things or those people that don't belong in your life. They're stopping your life from moving forward. You see, yesterday's faith and yesterday's leadership for Joshua would not and could not sustain him or secure him for the new battle and the new assignment that God had for his life to move forward. Joshua had to move from supporting God's vision to now leading God's visions. Joshua has to shift his attitude that will allow him to go to a new altitude to receive the promises that God had made to Abraham. We've heard it before, but you'll hear it again. We cannot go with God if we're not willing to grow with God. And we can't grow with God if we're not willing to go through with God. Greatness is never achieved when everything is right in your life. Greatness is achieved in your life when nothing is right in your life. Greatness is achieved when you have nothing, but because of your faith, you're willing to endure and see how God is able to take nothing and make it into something. Greatness is made and is accomplished when you're able to endure confusion that's now to change to clarity. Greatness is able to be achieved when you're willing to hurt until your help comes. Greatness is willing to be achieved when you're willing to allow your pains of life to bring forth God's purpose in your life. Greatness is achieved when we take our regrets to let them be in our refocus. Take our regrets to now remembering God's goodness. Take our regrets and allowing that to be a moment to reset, restart, refresh our attitudes for our lives. Martin Luther King, quote number 2. He said that the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in the moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at the times of challenge and controversy. Joshua, this great leader, this individual that we all admire. Leaders are always, if the truth be told, you're challenged day in and day out. But the difference between a leader and a non-leader, a leader embraces the challenge. So here we see as God continuously has to tell Joshua, be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. Why is God continuously repeating, be strong and courageous? There must have been some reservation and some timidness or something within Joshua that he was not moving forth as God would want him to do. So what's going on with Joshua? Joshua, he was clamming up a little bit at his moment of opportunity. Joshua, he was at a moment where his theology needed to grow. Joshua, he had to go from when God brings you to the point that now is your time to take the mantle. What's going to be your response? Are you going to have a theology that you're stuck all the time? Are you going to have a theology that you second guessing God, saying, not me, you ain't called my name, God? Are you going to have a theology that now going to doubting God, you definitely cannot be choosing me? Is it going to be a theology of fearing what's ahead of you? Is it going to be a theology of limit? You putting limits on what God cannot do for you, all because you can't see it, you can't touch it, and you can't smell it. What's going on in your life right now that is out of your control that you got to trust God for? When we find ourselves in these places, is God trying to expand your theology to trust Jesus even more? You see, whenever you attempt to move forward in life, I'm here to remind some and inform others, expect some resistance in your life. To move forward requires that you have to leave something or someone behind in order to move forward with God. You see, greatness is never satisfied with okay. Greatness is not satisfied with mediocre. Greatness is not satisfied with getting by or getting over. Greatness is only satisfied with being great. You see, ladies and gentlemen, what are you talking about? You see, when God is moving us forward, expect the enemy to step in, to trip you up, and to slow you down. Somebody may say, well, can you really make this plain to me? You trying to lose some weight, and your family keep bringing some Hurl's chicken on Friday night. You're trying to lose some weight, and your best friend, come on, girl, let's go eat a buffet. Now, you know I'm trying to lose some weight. You're trying to lose some weight, and the kids got Uber Eats coming up to the door. Ring, ring, ring. You're trying to get out of debt. I'm saving, girl. I'm not going shopping. And then that sanctified sister on the line. Girl, you know Jesus gonna pay it for you. You just gotta have the faith. Go get that dress and watch Jesus pay that credit card bill. Where your faith at, girl? You know Jesus can do it. Moving forward is hard, and it requires the willingness to endure the pain so you can experience the potential and the promises in life. Yes. Here's a great example. There's two young boys. They went to see the dentist, and the first boy said, "Doc, will you pull a tooth right now?" Dentist, you don't need to even give me no gas or Novocaine, the young boy said. Just take out the tooth. The dentist said, man, I love this type of patient here. All right, sure. That's brave and courageous of you. All right. So the dentist says to the young man, now which tooth do you want me to pull? The boy then turned to his friend and said, come on, Jimmy, show the doc your tooth. We can talk a big game, but when it comes down to the pain, no, you do it. I'll support you. I'll pray for you. I'll even fast for you. But God is calling you to move forward, and you got to pay the price. Can't nobody pay it but you. Can I get an amen? See, Joshua's life was in drive as he had the right initiatives and the right values. Joshua had a heart to serve. He had a heart that was a warrior. He had a heart, he was a worshiper. He had a heart where he was willing to do whatever it took to carry out God's mission for his life. And you see, with Joshua, when you do right and you follow God's commands, you don't have to campaign for a promotion. Joshua was chosen by God to lead the people into the new land. Joshua was a leader because he had a drive. Any coach, any business leader, any employer, they want people who have drive, have initiative, have fortitude, perseverance. Why is that? That's because they won't stop until they get the job done. Joshua, he had this within him. He was driven, he was disciplined, he was determined. Joshua was in a position position to move forward because he was prepared for the door of opportunity. When you are prepared in life, you don't have to find an opportunity. The opportunity comes finding you. Yes. Now God speaks to Joshua, whose name means deliverer. My servant Moses is dead. And now then, you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan into the land that I'm about to get you. Get ready, Joshua. It's time to move forward. Somebody say, get ready. Get ready. I want you to say, if you know your life situation, whatever that situation is right now, you speak to it right now and say, get ready. Get ready. It's time to move forward. It's time to move from preparation to promotion. Time to move from mentee to mentor. Time to move from the second chair to the head chair. Time to move from behind the scenes to directing the scenes. Time to move from talking about the land, dreaming about the land, hearing about it. It's time to take possession of what God has made a promise to you. There comes a time in life, ladies and gentlemen, we got to be all like Michelle Obama. Tell your neighbor, it's time to move. It's time to move. See, great leaders don't last forever. Great leaders' legacy lasts forever. Yeah. As a great leader Moses was, but now it's Joshua's time to take the mantle. In life, we're doing three things. We're transgression with no effectiveness, going bad, regressing, or we're losing our effectiveness, or we are in the process of progressing, going forward in God's effectiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, moving forward, it's not about what you've been through. Moving forward is about where God is taking you to. Yeah. Joshua, it's time to move forward. I made a promise to Abraham. I sustained the promise through Moses. But I'm going to deliver the promise through you. Joshua, you see, you did not realize I was preparing you with big steps through the little things that you were doing. It was all these little steps of faith that's prepared you for this big moment of faith. Don't discount what you've been through. Don't discount all the little things, all the mistakes that you have made. Because as Romans 8:28 tells us, all these things shall work together. What are you trying to tell us this morning, ladies and gentlemen? Our destiny is not determined by the number of times we stumble, but by the number of times that we rise up and dust ourselves off so you and I can move forward. Tell your neighbor, get up, dust off, so you can move forward. Well, how do we move forward in life? How do we move forward when we're driving on the expressway? Tell your neighbor, point number one is stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. One of Joshua's greatest characteristics was his humility to stay in his lane. He did not second guess Moses. He did not go back behind Moses' back. He was submitted and he served Moses by staying in his lane. Now God is calling Joshua to not get out of his lane, but to progress in his lane. You see, when you stay in your lane, in due season, you will progress when you get promoted right where you are. Yeah. One of the challenges of moving forward in life, ladies and gentlemen, is the temptation of always want to change lanes. See, changing lanes means I want to ignore my role and my responsibilities. Rather than remaining in my lane to take care of my lane, it's easier for me to ignore my lane and try to take over your lane. But when we neglect our lane and try to take over somebody else's lane, that creates a nice messy lane. You see, when you cannot move forward in your life, it's all because you're trying to get out of your lane, take over somebody else's lane, create a messy lane that you had to crash on the expressway. Tell your neighbor, stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. In track, you get disqualified if you get in your lane. In the race car racing, if you get out of your lane, you'll get in a car wreck. In horse racing, if you get out of your lane, you're going to get disqualified. In your career, you must stay in your lane. Living for the Lord requires that we stay in our lane of being sold out for Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ alone. Yeah. We have to stay in our lane of being godly at all times and not sometimes. Stay in our lane of loving God with all our hearts and all our minds. Stay in our lane of having peace and compassion. Stay in our lane of being forgiving. Tell your neighbor, stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. And start changing your lane.
And start changing your lane.
Don't be 1 minute I'm in holiness and the next minute I'm hating each other. 1 minute I'm in the lane of serving and the next minute I'm in the minute of backbiting. 1 minute I'm in the minute of quoting God's word and the next minute I'm rebuking you over there. 1 minute we got conflict and confusion in the workplace and the next minute we try to ask God for his blessings in the workplace. God is telling us stay in your lane of holiness. Stop getting out of the holiness because you're getting hooked up on something that you might not be able to get yourself out of. Tell your neighbor, I'm going to stay in my lane. In our homes, there's tension. That's why we have conflict. Sometimes you got the kids trying to be the parent. Sometimes you got the parents trying to be the kids. Everybody's all confused because nobody wants to do what? Stay in their lane. Everybody's compromising, trying to take over each other. But if you stay over there and be the man of the house, and you stay over there and be the woman of the house, and you stay over there and be the child of the house, and let God be almighty of the house, you might have a peaceful house. Tell your neighbor, stay in your lane. So God can direct you, prosper you, and progress you to be all that he has in store for your life. Can I get an amen? Because ladies and gentlemen, when you are on the highway, you are expected. You get pulled over with a ticket when the police officer sees you swerving in and out, all because you're impatient, trying to get and avoid the traffic. When you start doing that, you're driving out of control, and that's how some of our lives are. When we're not patient on the Lord, we're going in and out. I'm going in the club today and the church tomorrow. I'm smoking today and I'm praising tomorrow. I'm drinking a little bit of this and now I'm over here drinking a little bit of that. I'm talking about you over here and I'm talking about you over there. God just stop swerving in and out. That's why your life is all in disarray. Take your neighbor, stay in your lane and stop swerving in and out. If you're going to swerve in the name of Jesus. Remember, our lane should be ordered by the word of the Lord. That's a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our pathway. What's directing your path, ladies and gentlemen? Is it the word of God or is the word of the world? Ladies and gentlemen, there's a quote, you can't serve two masters. Some of us are too busy trying to be on both sides of the fence, and you're going to get hurt trying to stay on both sides of the fence. You're going to get tripped up and caught up your livelihood. Tell your neighbor, you can't serve both sides of the fence. Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane.
But not only must you stay in your lane, tell your neighbor, point number 2, stay focused on your lane.
Stay focused on your lane.
You know how it is. You in your car driving, and you text message and you listen to this and you listen to that, and the next thing you know, you're unconsciously swerving over here and swerving over there until somebody blow their horn. You don't realize that you swerved out of your lane. But the Bible tells us, how do we not swerve in and out? In Joshua 1:8 it says, keep this book of the law always on your lips.
Yeah.
Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you'll be prosperous and successful. You see, you can be in your lane, but not focused on your lane. Swerving in and out, but you're still not focused. See, some of us think we're more focused than we actually are. I got a great example. There's a story. A preacher came to dinner with the family, and the mother of the family, she was so happy to have the minister in the house, and she wanted to impress him. She wanted the preacher to read something to the family after dinner. So she asked one of her daughters, darling, please and go get the good book. Everybody say good book.
Good book.
Go and get the good book we love. We love the good book. Go get the book we read every day and every night. So the mother's all energetic and all ready for the pastor. She wanted Pastor Wright to come read this story. The old girl comes back, and she comes back and she hands this Pastor Wright a Sears catalog. What's my point? Don't substitute the word of God with the worldly things of God.
Yeah.
How we can let the things of the world to now become our good book.
Yeah.
How we can let the daytime, you got Roseanne, you got Oprah, you got Dr. Phil, you got Dr. Everybody. Now they've replaced Jesus. They have more wisdom than the Word of God. Ladies and gentlemen, when you're trying to move forward, one of the key things when you're driving, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot allow the traffic in your life to become the trouble in your life. The traffic of what everybody else is doing. The traffic of what you see other people experiencing. The traffic of being idle. The traffic of what's popular, what's easy to do. The traffic, ladies and gentlemen, that causes congestion. God wants us to focus on the truth that what God starts, God finishes.
Yes, sir.
Joshua, remember, stay focused in your lane.
Yes.
Remember, you have to go down, Joshua, and fight the Amalekites who were superior to you. Remember, be strong. But remember how faithful I've been to you in the past.
Yes.
Remember when you went down to fight the Amalekites down in the valley, you didn't have weapons of mass destruction. You didn't have the military might of the Amalekites, but you had the word of God. You should have been defeated, Joshua, but you remember when you went down there, you didn't fight with conventional weapons. You fight with weapons of the Spirit. Because every time you went down there, you didn't have the military, but what did you have? You had obedience to the word of God, to trust in the word of God. That every time you would lift up the hands of Moses with his rod, that you guys would defeat the Amalekites. What is that telling us today, ladies and gentlemen? How do we fight? See, when Moses lifted up his hands, that was a sign of worshiping God. Our warfare against the trials and tribulations, we go into worship with the word of God. And you defeated it. But not only did you defeat the Amalekites, Joshua, you remember when Moses sent you out to spy out the land. It's 12 of you, but only 2 came back with a good report.
Yes.
But you stayed focused there. And why did you stay focused, ladies, Joshua? Because you didn't allow the giants of the land become bigger than your God.
Yes.
You knew that even though the giants may have been big, that your God was even bigger.
Yes.
Joshua, you didn't focus on what your problem was. You focused on what your potential is. Because you know that your God is great and greatly to be praised. And you know that your God is one that rewards those who diligently seek him. So Joshua, don't forget of how I've already been faithful when you were in war with the Amalekites. Don't forget how faithful I've been to you when you went and you spied out the land. It's only you and Caleb that were honored. So Joshua, never stop focusing on who your God is. The God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Moses is the same God that's with you today.
Yes.
Joshua, don't forget that it's by faith that the elders obtained the good report.
Yes.
Don't forget it was by faith that Noah built the ark. Don't forget it's by faith that you walked around the city 7 times and the walls came down. Don't forget, by faith, Nehemiah built the city. Don't forget, it was by faith that Ruth would not leave Naomi. Don't forget, it's by faith, Joshua, that you are here today.
Yes.
Tell your neighbor, it's by faith.
It's by faith.
And faith alone.
And faith alone.
So stay in your lane.
Yes.
Stay focused on your lane.
Stay focused on your lane.
And last but not least, tell your neighbor, stay strong in your lane.
Stay strong in your lane.
Joshua. He tells Joshua, you will win this battle. Don't fear. Here we see that God is giving Joshua revelation of what's going to happen. He's giving him something that is subjective to Joshua. He can't see his victory. He can't feel his victory. He doesn't know how he's going to obtain his victory. He's giving him something. He's giving him his word. He's giving him revelation that is subjective. Here now in the text, he's motivating Joshua. Joshua, you got to grow from just having revelation.
My Lord.
Because we live in a world today that everybody has revelation. Everybody heard God, seen God, felt from God. But Joshua, I want you to grow beyond just having a revelation.
Yes.
So somebody might be saying, well, what is that? He wants you to grow from just having a revelation in your life to having a realization in your life.
Yeah.
God wants you to grow from being subjective to now having the objective. Going from revelation to realization to experiencing the victory for your life. Well, what allows us to move from revelation to realization in our lives? You have to be just like Joshua. You got to keep on marching. You got to keep on believing. You got to trust God even when you don't know how you're going to get to the other side. He said, Joshua, get ready, because in 3 days you're going to cross over to the other side of the Jordan. You see, when you're going to walk with God, you're going to look crazy to the world. So Joshua and the 12 tribes of Levi, the 12 tribes of Israel, with the Levites leading the charge, they begin their descent in the wilderness, getting ready to walk down to the Jordan. They don't know how, they don't know when, they're just being obedient to the word of God to get ready to cross across the Jordan River. Just think about it. We think we're going to walk across from Chicago to Detroit, Michigan. If we lined up, they would call everybody to rescue us, because they would say they had lost their mind. But they thought the children of Israel had lost their mind as they're marching through the wilderness, getting ready to walk through the Jordan River. But what the people didn't realize, when you have God on your side, all things are possible. Somebody say, all things are possible. God created everything that exists. So if God created everything that exists has to respond to the voice of the Almighty God. As they got near to the Jordan River, and the priests, out of faith, stepped their foot down into the river. They didn't know that God's creation got to give him some praise, because the water split and he started clapping and giving God praise and opened up the river so the children of Israel could walk through on dry land. But why did that happen? It happened because they had the faith to do something that was crazy. They might have said on the beginning to get into the river, how are we going to cross to the other side? There is no bridge to go to the other side. But what you must realize is that Jesus is a bridge for each and every last one of us to get over to the other side of where he's taking us to. But God is calling each of us to stay in our lane, stay focused in our lane, and stay strong in our lane. Because when you remain faithful, when you keep God first, when you do the crazy and do things that other people don't necessarily understand, they can't necessarily feel it or see it, God is faithful. He honors your obedience. He honors your praise. He honors your sacrifice. He honors your worship. So don't give up on God. God wants you to move forward. And just like God told the children of Israel, in 3 days you are about to cross over to the other side. I know somebody here needs to cross over from being in debt to being debt free. Somebody in here needs to cross over from having pain in their body to being pain free. Somebody needs to cross over from about to go through a divorce to back to reconciliation. But God got a special revelation for Life Church this morning. Are y'all ready for your special revelation this morning? God says, don't get ready in 3 days. Somebody say 1 day.
1 day.
God says, Life Church, get ready in 1 day. Because in 1 day, God has answered your prayers. God has heard your prayers. God has seen your sacrifice.